Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching over 1,000 stand-up comedians over the last 47 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today, the wonderful Leslie Gold. Yes!
Oh,
Hello!
thank you so much. Hello, Rich. I, no one has a laugh like you. Nobody does. It's amazing. You could bottle that and sell it.
Well, they laugh began. I went to see Tom O'Connor of all people on a family holiday, who was an old 70s comedian who was great. And I sat there and I just laughed loudly at him, and it actually floored his act because he didn't realise how funny he was. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. It's really good to have you as a guest. We're going to talk about your comedy career for the next 45 minutes to an hour. And I'd like to begin by asking you, how did you become a comedian in the first place, please?
Okay. I've not been a comedian very long. Despite my age, I'm a bit of a baby comic still. And it all started a couple of years ago when some friends were putting on a charity gig. And one of them knew I had an interest and said, "Would you like to give it a go?" And I thought, I'll do it once and cross it off my bucket list. And last night I did my 201st gig. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Well done, you. Oh, fantastic. That is great. Because I first met you at Alwaysby Comedy at the bar. And you said, we've got this comedy night going, starting up. Come along. And we're going to move on and talk about it a lot more later. But it's so good to be part of your night as well. Where was your first ever gig, and what was it like?
It was downstairs at the Star of Kings in King's Cross,
Right.
A well-known venue. And it went really well.
Yes.
So my friend had asked me to do this, and we worked together at the time, and we were out at a works drink do, and I might have had a few drinks by the time I said yes to this. But I went home that night, opened my laptop, and just started, and the gig wasn't for another 6 weeks, and I think I spent every spare moment of that 6 weeks thinking, what am I going to say? How am I going to say it?
Wow.
Nobody, oh my God, and freaking out. And then on the night, my first ever set was 10 minutes, which is ridiculous because most people start with 5. But I didn't know what was normal. And he said, "Yeah, can you do 10? I'm like, "Yeah, I could talk for 10. Sure." And it went really well.
Brilliant.
No one was more surprised than me.
So was this in a pub? Did you start off in pubs building up experience? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've spent more time in pubs in the last 2 years than I have since I was early 20s, where I spent a lot of time in pubs.
Do you take friends along with you for support? Because whenever I go and certainly support new comedians, they always say to me, we need a +1, and that's for me to sit in wherever in the comedy venue and laugh at them, and I love to go, but it's the whole point of the blog is to support new comedians as well as established ones. Is that the case for you?
Well, in London, if you want to start out, there is the notorious beastie of the Bringer gig, and people have opinions. Lots and lots of opinions about Bringer gigs. When I started, I was only too happy to take whatever stage time anyone would give me, and that meant bringing friends along, but it also was a bit of an opportunity to see friends and say, here's a reason to come out tonight, or here's a reason to do a thing. And I only started doing comedy about 6 months before the world ended. I had my very first paid gig on March 13th, 2020.
Wow.
And I'm not going to take responsibility.
No, certainly not.
But it did feel a bit like, But I try and use it as an opportunity to see friends as well. So if I travel a fair bit to a gig, I live in South London, but I'll gig in Ipswich or Portsmouth or
Sure.
Bristol, and I try and catch up with friends in that area when I do that. So it's serving double purpose. So I always try and get friends out to my gigs. I'm relentlessly publicizing and promoting my gigs. Anyone who's friends with me on Facebook will know that. But I think it's great to get audience along, because there's no point in doing live comedy without an audience.
Exactly.
And they're very important. So yeah, it's multiple purpose. I always try and get friends to come to gigs, and I don't really do bringer gigs anymore if I
No.
can help it. But I still try and get friends to come out and spend time and see me and spend an evening laughing, because what's better than that?
It's such a positive vibe, isn't it? It's such a positive thing to do. What's not to love? I so admire you for doing it. Did you ever find it difficult at all to break through into comedy? Did you have any difficult nights? I can't ever imagine you having a bad gig because you're so bubbly. Clearly,
and you
that's
say you're
wrong.
not funny. Yeah, I have died on my ass many times. You're not a comic till you've died on your ass.
No, exactly.
The first time I had a terrible gig was one I had been really looking for. It was like I think it was my seventh gig, and it was at Angel. And I had been so excited to perform at Angel, and I just died. Just my timing was off, and it was the day after I flew back from the States, and I was jet lagged, and I should not have accepted that gig, but I didn't know that then, and I was exhausted, and for whatever reason, I totally flubbed it, and I felt like a prize ass. But
oh dear.
It's how you learn.
Exactly. I always say to any comedian, you have to, I would guess, have to have a bad gig in order to be a better comedian.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to learn at every gig, and it might be that you learn that you should not do that material, or it might be that you learn to listen to your instinct when you know you're not ready for something. But sometimes it's just a case of trying different things and seeing what works, and you're not really going to know what works until you know what doesn't work.
Sure, yeah. So, when did you come to Britain then? Was this before the comedy started?
Oh yeah, I've been in the UK since 2003.
Right.
So a very long time. I never did comedy in the States, and actually, people ask me a lot if I would, and I don't think they find me.
Well, I don't know. You could definitely have a go.
But yeah, when I was younger, I kind of dabbled in a couple of performance things, but I wasn't very good.
Right.
And I never had the confidence until very recently to give it a go.
Wow. Yeah. It is all about confidence. What do you like to talk about on stage? Are there any specific areas that you go down every time, or?
Not every time, but I will say that my family is a rich treasure trove of material. To put it in context, I'm the quiet one in my family. I'm the quiet, retiring one.
Right.
That might give you a tiny sense.
We've
got big characters.
I can't really believe that when I see you on stage. So there's a rich amount of comedy in your family, yeah?
Yeah, there's a lot to pick apart. I had a fairly somewhat difficult childhood.
Right.
Not compared to a lot of people, but some fairly significant things that happened that weren't good.
Okay.
And I spent a long time as a kid being angry and, feeling hard done by. And I realized about 10 years after I was behaving this way that it wasn't actually doing anything good for me. And so I tried to let that go a bit. But now I'm revisiting some of that stuff and finding the laughter in it, which is great.
How wonderful is that, to turn something difficult into something good and something positive? It's wonderful.
My mom's not entirely sure she agrees, but
when you're on stage, how do you remember all your routines? Have you got a way to remember them?
I practice a lot. I learn by doing, and so I am often seen going for walks, and it looks like I'm either talking to myself or having a very dramatic conversation on the phone, but really I've got my headphones in. I'm possibly recording myself to listen back to it later, because I often write while walking as
Right.
well, and using my headphones and recording, because when I haven't got a screen in front of me and when I haven't got other distractions and I'm just out walking, I can just talk and think. And I learn, you asked how I learn. I learn by repeating. Every morning in the shower, I'll practice whatever my current bit is, or I'll try
Right.
and riff new ideas. And yeah, my partner's like, I've heard it 1,000 times. But I just, yeah, I learn a lot by repetition. And then, because most of my material is mostly storytelling, and it's almost entirely true. So
Yeah.
it's not about necessarily remembering my set, just about thinking about what I want to talk about. And if there's any kind of wordplay, if I'm having a good set, I'll try and remember the right order to do the things in. But that comes from repetition for me.
That's very interesting, because the other most creative thing I've ever done, apart from this blog, I wrote a play and appeared in it, for which we did for Comic Relief, and myself and my friend, we did 3 performances, and the play was called The Applicant. And it's basically about me coming down from Carlisle to London. I've got a very successful girlfriend, and I've never had a job before. And it was all my experiences of going through all the interview process and whatnot. So it would start off with me running out late for an interview, and then be interviewed by my mate who did all the accents. So, of course, writing monologues, because I'm sitting in the waiting room nervous, I wrote 6 pages of these monologues for this character. And the first time we did it, I ran out and I completely forgot my lines. I was like a rabbit in headlights, and it was fascinating listening to you there, because if you're repeating it in repetition, that must be a good way for you to remember your set as you go on, because a lot of comedians write notes down on their hands and all the rest of it, but you're not like that, are you, or do you? No.
No, I don't write notes on my hand. I
No.
wouldn't be able to read them
Yeah.
on stage. And it's, yeah, I mean, I would struggle to condense like this bit into that word.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like muscle memory. If you say it enough times, you get to learn it. It's just like learning lyrics to a song.
Yeah.
You know, but we've all had those moments. We've all every comic at some point has completely blanked on stage. It happens, and it hasn't happened to me a lot, but it has happened. And there's a power in remembering that the audience doesn't know what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
They haven't seen the script. They don't think there is a script. They think you're riffing this all off the top of your head.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been working on developing more, which is one of the reasons I wanted to MC my own gig, is to be able to think more in the moment and to riff stuff and to not get that deer in the headlights moment.
Well, believe me, performances 2 and 3 were word perfect for us. I was so gutted, because we'd spent like 10 weeks rehearsing it, and to go out and to forget your lines, I was gutted. But
That is gutting.
It's one of those things. You were named one to watch at the West End New Act of the Year very recently in 2022. Well done, you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Thank you. That was a surprise.
Well, I was going to say, please, can you describe the experience, and what is your view of comedy competitions in general?
Well, this might not be a popular view.
Carry
That's
on.
never stopped me before. I'm not a massive fan of competitions. people always laugh when I say I'm not a competitive person. I enjoy competing. I don't get the hump if I lose something, right? I just, if I'm going to compete in something, I want to do my best. Everybody does. So I haven't entered a ton of competitions. I did So You Think You're Funny because it was my first year. It was the only year I was ever going to be eligible for it. I got to the semifinals in that. I was completely blown away, and it was a massive learning experience for me, and I learned so much from it. So for me, that's a win. I didn't go to the final. I didn't win it. Who cares? I learned a lot, and that's what I wanted from it. And Steve, who runs the West End New Act competition, he's a brilliant comic. And when he told me he was doing this competition, he was like, "Do you want to enter? You know, you're eligible," because I'm still, like I say, still a fairly new comic. I thought about it, and Steve's such a good guy, and he's so funny that I thought if he's involved, it's going to be pretty good, and there's probably a lot to learn from that as well. So I did that. And I, again, I didn't get to the final. I didn't win it, but I was really honored to be named one to watch.
It is amazing. Yeah.
It's really lovely to get to find out that a comic you respect thinks that you're all right.
What's Steve's surname?
McLean.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant.
He is so
He's
good.
so funny. Yeah.
He's so funny, and he's got a real unique sort of charm about him in that he can be quite aggro on stage, but in a really charming way, which I admire.
That's what you want. You want not endearment, but you want to be able to listen to him and go along with him for the ride, and he's perfect at doing that. I've seen him before. He's very, very funny man.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Do you think that being noticed in a competition will make you get more gigs or increase your exposure?
I mean, I hope so. That's one of the reasons you do it. And like I say, I don't do. There's some things I don't want. I have no intention of ever doing a gong show.
No.
I can't see what the point is. So many bad things could happen. But I think the point of doing any comps like the ones that you do is to learn from it, but also you want to put it on your little bio when you send off to say, "Book me, please."
Sure.
Being able to say one to watch is nice, and hopefully it'll help somebody else go, "Okay, yeah, let's give her a shot."
Brilliant. It's so true you say about the Gong Show. A few years ago now, I knew a comedy promoter, and I thought to myself, I need to get all this out of my system. I want to have a go at being a stand-up comedian. And the promoter, I went up to the promoter and I said, I've got this script about me crashing cars in my home city of Carlisle. And he said, oh, this is brilliant. He said, you'll be perfect. He said it's a gong show, the worst you could do, for old people. So I went out in the afternoon. It was an afternoon and evening show, and I went out in the afternoon. And before I said anything, launched into my script, the opening line I had was, "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When I was at college, people used to think I looked like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself." And obviously, at the time, I was his double. Nothing except one old man at the back just went, "Fuck off," and gonged me off to my own steps. And the promoter then said to me, "Have another go in the evening." The same thing happened in the evening, similar thing. And I thought, I think my place is in the audience, supporting everybody, and so it's worked out. Never say never again, but it was the worst experience that you could have for the genre, but at least I had a go.
Starting with a gong show, though, you're not setting yourself up for success there.
Exactly. But
there's some people who swear by them, but I think it depends on the style of comic you are as well. If I was a one-liner comic, which I wish I was, but I cannot write a one-liner to save my life, they do well. Generally. I get up on stage and I tell stories, and I don't think that's likely to do well in a gong show environment.
Well, I think certainly comedians have one for storytelling, but you're right, it's snappy, quick one-liners. When I was deciding on writing the book and the blog, I went to a half-day writing course, and it was run by the lady from Amused Moose. And I went as a result of that. I was invited to be a judge on one of the panels for the Amused Moose. It was just in the audience, and it was fascinating to see how it all worked out. But I'm with you. It's like I've seen so many over the years that if they walk out and they're endearing and you want to see them again and they are original, then there we are. It's just the best thing, sitting there laughing at them. Let's move on. Whenever I've seen you, and this is contradicting you, you always appear very, very confident on stage and fearless with an audience. Do you suffer from any nerves before you go on stage, and how do you cope with them?
Well,
I'm all ears.
apparently I'm a very good actress. I don't suffer much with nerves anymore. I get adrenalized. I enjoy being on stage. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. But that's a newish thing for me. When I was a child, I had crippling stage fright.
Wow.
So much so that if an adult I didn't know came to our house, I would hide behind my father. Like, I could not deal. And it was, I'm a natural introvert and a learned extrovert. Okay. And I am much happier as an extrovert, but I had to learn how to be that. And I was fine with my stage fright. When I was a kid, I wanted to perform, but I didn't have any self-confidence, and the stage fright made that worse.
Wow.
So I couldn't even dream of performing as a kid. And then years later, I was in uni, and I went to uni in America, where it works differently than here. For my university course, I had to pass a public speaking class as part of my journalism course. And my professor called me aside early on in the semester, and he said, you're writing very good speeches, but you're delivering terrible speeches, and you're not going to pass my class. You need to do something. And I said, well, you're the professor. What should I do? And he said, I don't know.
Wow.
That's not very helpful.
Blimey.
So I had to take quite drastic action. And so I joined the cast of Rocky Horror.
Right.
Because it was something that was happening at my school, and I knew some people were doing it, and I thought, well, if I go up and play the role of Magenta, nobody's really going to think that's me, because the core truth about stage fright is, what will they think of me? That's what it is. But if I was playing an outrageous character, then there was no risk that anyone was going to think that was me, if that makes sense. And
Totally,
forcing
yeah.
myself to do that gave me the confidence to then go back to my class and deliver a speech. But before I stepped up to the rostrum to give a speech, I told myself I was playing the character of a confident public speaker. And that's all it took.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful.
And it changed everything.
That's wonderful. I immediately think of somebody like Ronnie Barker, the great character actor, British character actor, who was terrified to be interviewed as himself. And he even had to have something like a moustache or anything that would be a prop. And once he was in character, he was a different person. That is a fantastic answer you've given, because it's so. If you hadn't have said that, I would never have known watching you perform, because you're so animated and you're so full of life. It's lovely. It's really good.
Thank you. I'm a much happier person as an extrovert who likes to be on stage than I ever was as an introvert with stage fright. And so it is quite self-indulgent, really. But it did change everything. But it still took me years and years before I mean, that was I was 19 then, and I'm 50 now. I was 47 the first time I did comedy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it took a long
Long,
time
long
to.
time. And it's interesting you talk about the Rocky Horror Show because I was at college in Stoke-on-Trent, and my first time I'd ever been away, and the first week I was there, we went to see the touring production of it, and I had absolutely no idea what to expect, and I was told to go with toilet rolls, chocolate bars, and I'm thinking, what on earth's this? But it was so joyous at the end of it that everybody was just dancing, and that was the magic thing about it, and to immerse yourself in the character like you did, that must have been very encouraging for you.
Yeah, it changed everything, and
Yeah,
it's a ridiculous thing to say Rocky Horror changed my life,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it did.
Wow, that is so good. Um, okay, let's move on again. Let's move on to the Edinburgh Fringe. Have you ever been to the Edinburgh Festival?
By the time this goes out, I
Yeah,
will have done, and I will have performed at Edinburgh. Not my own show, but I am going up this summer, and I've got a few spots booked. Partly with Steve McLean and his West End showcase, which is going to be great. And I've got a few spots coming up on other comp shows up at Edinburgh. So mainly, I'm going as a punter to
yeah,
just bathe in comedy for the 8 days I'm going, and get as many spots as I can and see as many comics as I can. And I was of two minds because of the pandemic.
yeah,
I'm going to Edinburgh much later than I would have done
sure.
if the pandemic hadn't happened. And so a couple people were like, "Oh, are you going to take a show up? Are you going to take it?" And I'm like, "I'm not there yet, and I'm not prepared to do half an hour or an hour at Edinburgh to say I've done it if I'm
Yeah,
not going
yeah.
to be able to do it at least halfway decently."
Is this will this be your first ever Edinburgh Fringe then that you've gone up to? Because
Yep.
I'm very lucky to be able to go every year. I've been every year since 2005,
Wow.
and the only two I've missed were the last 2 years, obviously because of the pandemic. And I just love it. I go for a week. It's my holiday. I see about 50 shows. I need a holiday when I come back because I'm so exhausted from laughing. Um, this year particularly will be very special because it's their 75th birthday in August. I think this may go out in November time, something like this, or it'll have been. But they're 75 and I'm 55, so bring it on. And we haven't been for 2 years, so I, for one, will definitely come and see you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yay.
So congratulations that you've got a spot there,
Thank
and
you.
I'm sure it will go absolutely brilliantly. Okay, I've seen you at your comedy night, Sofa So Funny, which is a comedy night for new comedians and established acts. Please tell me about its creation, and can you describe your writing process and where you get your ideas from if you're doing a routine instead of comparing?
Oh, there's a lot to unpack from that question, Richard. So,
Sorry, it's a bit
so
long-winded.
no, that's okay. So far, so funny.
Yeah,
I'll tackle this first.
yeah,
So, during the pandemic, the brilliant Stuart Goldsmith, who we all know and love, had an online show called The Infinite Sofa,
yeah,
which you may have seen, and it was fantastic. And he involved members of the public in his Zoom show, kind of sitting on his infinite sofa. And out of that tremendously creative time, this whole community came together of fans, comedy nerds, basically. And there were a few of us who'd already done comedy, but largely in this very tight knit online community, lots of the regulars, the SoFam, as we were called,
yeah,
hadn't done comedy, but a lot of them wanted to try it. So we were chatting one day, and I said, "Why don't I put on a Zoom gig? And, it'll be private, it'll be invitation only, and it'll give you guys who want to try it a chance to try comedy for the first time." Because my friends who gave me that first spot, I'm just forever grateful to them, and I want to pay that forward. So we had a tremendous show. We had about 50 people in the Zoom room. We had 7 or 8 new acts, and a couple of us who'd done comedy before, and it was a chance for me to learn how to MC a little bit. And it was only a Zoom show, and it was going to be a one-off thing.
Yeah.
It went really well, so it started to become a regular thing. And then when we came out of lockdown, I said, let me see if I can put on a real, I want to be a real boy. Let me see if I could put on a real gig. So we did that at Faversham Fringe, because that was small enough and accessible enough to make that work. And I wanted to see what the stress points were of it. I can put on events for work and stuff, so I thought it's not much different. And that went really well. So then I said, I want to do a monthly show. I want to do it near London Bridge because that's convenient for me and there's not enough gigs south of the river. And I wanted it to always be a welcoming place for new comics, particularly people trying their first ever go at stand-up. But I also wanted to bring in some of these incredible comedy legends that we know and love, maybe people who they might not be household names to the average person watching telly of a Saturday night, but they're huge to comedy nerds. And so that was the structure. So we have like a pro headliner, and we've got a new act, and then we've got experience in between. And it was an opportunity for me to learn how to compare. And I love it.
I can see.
The energy is so fun. It's so much fun. We get the best audiences because they're comedy nerds. They're there to have fun, to be supportive. We've been really fortunate with the acts that we've got, both the headline acts and everywhere else throughout the lineup. I don't run like massive numbers of people on a night. Like the most we've had on is 10 acts because I can't bear some of these gigs that have like 20 acts on it. It's too much.
There's only so much.
there is a limit.
Yeah.
And so I want sort of 2 hours, new acts, professional acts, and it's an opportunity for the pros to try out new material in a really supportive environment because our audience is the best audience. You've been part of it, you know. It's so supportive and warm. So we've had some tremendous people like Grania McGuire did the first one, and she's a hero of mine. She's so funny.
She's brilliant.
And so, we've just gone from strength to strength. We've been really fortunate that way. And we've been able to give brand new acts, I think 10 or 12 a go at the first ever spot. And some people who are still quite new, 3, 4, 5 gigs in. And then we've got Stu Goldsmith coming up this summer headlining one of our shows. So it's going to be tremendous. And I don't know what'll happen by the time this airs, this goes out, but we are trialing a second venue. So we might be going to 2 shows a month.
Wow. Where's the second venue going to be?
It's near Liverpool Street Station.
Fantastic.
So that could be good. We'll see. It's very exciting. We're just in the planning stages now. So that's going to be in May. And if that goes well, it'll be monthly, the last Wednesday of the month.
Brilliant.
And So for So Funny near London Bridge is the second Monday of each month. So that could give us a good balance.
Yeah.
But you asked about the difference between performing a set and emceeing. It's so different. Because with some acts who I really admire can go up and riff and do crowd work and kind of improvise their entire set. And I've never been able to do that. Although I'd love to be able to. But emceeing gives me a little bit of that, where I have to be present in the room and know what's going on and be able to tap into what's going on and keep the energy levels right, because that's an MC's primary job. It's not about me as an MC. It's about keeping the night fun and moving and making sure that the comedians come onto a lovely stage where they get a warm reception from the audience. And when it goes well, and so far we've been really lucky, it's always gone really well. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, you can tell. I mean, when I've been twice, and I think it's one of the best comedy nights in London. I really do. I think. I was going to ask you, how did you find St Christopher's Pub? Did you just approach them, and were they looking for a comedy night, or?
They weren't looking for a comedy night. I had a Monday off work randomly, and I went on an expedition. My goal was to find somewhere near London Bridge, within 5-6 minutes walk of London Bridge Station, because some people are afraid to come south of the river, but London Bridge is quite accessible, isn't it? It's genuinely, because I live in Southeast London. If I put on a gig near me, I would struggle to get
Sure.
people there.
Yeah.
So I wanted a place with a separate room, not in a corner of the pub, because those are difficult gigs to make work. I've done
Yeah.
enough of them. I wanted a place, ideally, that was fully accessible for people with mobility issues, because one of the things that was great about Zoom was that it brought people together. So our Zoom gigs, I know a lot of comics hate them. They are different, but they serve a purpose, and they make comedy more accessible for
Yeah.
performers and audience. So people who maybe have mobility issues, who have health issues, who are geographically not convenient to
Sure.
the gig can still attend. So what I wanted was a space that had accessibility and where the venue was going to be on board with helping to promote, and ideally not charge me for the room, if I'm honest. And so I wandered into St. Christopher's Pub. I'd never been there before, but at first I thought, nah, it's a long, thin bar, but they have a function room downstairs. And I got chatting with the manager, and she said, yeah, just email this person. And she gave me some details, and I thought, they don't seem that keen, I don't know. But I sent an email off, and it was the best of the venues I'd seen that day. And I got talking to the people in their head office, and they were keen, and they said, yeah, we used to have comedy here. It worked really well. And they've been really supportive.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so the first gig in September last year, we did downstairs in a separate function room. It's a bit of a weird shape. It's very long and thin. So you could only fit sort of 3 people abreast. But we outgrew that by our second month, and we moved upstairs to a room at the back of the pub. So
and it's such a perfect room that it really is. You've got space for the stage, so you can get physical acts on, visual comedians. You've got plenty of seats, and the acoustics are really good in there.
Yeah, we've been so lucky, and the people who run the pub have been really supportive and really helpful. And yeah, we've been so lucky. I mean, I want to still build and get better at. I need to sort out some music, and I need to sort out some more banners and stuff, just general stuff. But we've only been going 6 months, and it's been so wonderful. And so St. Christopher's, who runs that pub, they're the ones who approached me about this other venue. And it's neither one is fully as accessible as I'd like for people with mobility issues. The one at London Bridge has 1 step down.
Right.
So most it's not 100% accessible for people with mobility issues, but it's more so than most gigs in London.
Sure. Yeah.
So it didn't tick all the boxes, but it's been a really positive experience.
Well, I wish you all the best with it, because you have got something very special there. I've thoroughly enjoyed. I've been twice, and when you say it's only been going 6 months, the first one was September 2021. Was that correct? The first live one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So keep going with it. Keep going every second Monday of the month. Is that correct?
That is correct. We're going to amend that for August because of Edinburgh. We're bringing it forward by a week. By the time this goes out, it won't be relevant, but we'll adjust as needed. So in August, it'll be the first Monday, not the second Monday.
Brilliant. Well, I'm gonna try and get to every single one of them, because I love it. I absolutely love it, and I'm gonna try and bring as many people as I can with me as well, because it so deserves the success that it's clearly getting. Do you have any ambitions as a comedian? I mean, you've half answered that. You're looking to, I think, promote and expand with your comedy empire. Is that correct?
Oh, I don't know about an empire. I mean, well, it's funny because it's kind of a choice. I feel like I'm at a bit of a crossroads, because on the one hand, I do want to add a second show a month, but on the other hand, there's a lot of admin. Nobody tells you that a lot of comedy is comedy admin.
Yeah.
And, well, some people tell you, like Matt Richardson said on Comedian's Comedian the other week. And I know Matt, and I sent him a message. I'm like, I'm good at comedy admin. Fantastic.
Matt's one of the best. I know him really well. He's such a funny
fantastic.
Man. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of admin involved with putting on a show.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm reasonably good at, if I can say that, because, in my job, I need to be decent at that level of detail and admin. but it is time consuming, and I'm also trying to gig as much as possible and still have, a life, and still go and see comedy and consume comedy and learn. So I'm at a bit of we're going to trial this second night and see how it goes.
See how
If
it
it goes
goes.
well, it'll become a regular thing. But that'll also give me an opportunity to bring in some guest MCs from time to time. But the admin is the stuff that takes the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works. At the moment, I'm gigging 4 or 5 nights a week, and that's a lot because I also work
That's a
full time.
lot of nights doing comedy.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I love it.
I know. I can
Mostly.
clearly see. And with the admin, there is a lot of admin for my blog and podcast.
I bet.
I spend my weekends on it because I'm passionate about doing it, and I think that's half of it. And I don't know whether you've had him on before, but I certainly think Matt Richardson would be a brilliant headliner at So Funny if you could get him.
I mean, I agree entirely. And Matt, if you're hearing this, I will be hitting you up for that.
Well, he's been on here. He was one of the first people on the podcast, and he was hilarious.
Fantastic.
He was so good.
He's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on. I don't know if I can afford him, to be honest.
Well,
But
we shall
so I'm
see.
trying to grow the show so that I can get these amazing headliners doing
yeah.
sort of new material in a friendly environment. And it also, I know a lot of our acts who have less experience than these headliners. They're thrilled to be sharing a stage with some of their heroes.
Yeah. Because it gives them confidence and experience as well. You know, seeing more experienced and more established comics. Talking about Matt Richardson, who is one of my favourite comedians, who are your favourite comedians, past and present?
It's a long list. My I have 2 all-time comedy heroes.
Right.
Bob Newhart
Oh.
and Lucille Ball.
Oh, fantastic. That's wonderful.
And I'd love someday to tell a story as well as Bob Newhart.
Yeah.
But I will never be as physical as Lucille Ball. But it doesn't mean I can't love her entirely and wholeheartedly.
It's so good because I remember at secondary school, he was featured in an assembly. I can't think why, but I could not stop laughing at Bob Newhart, and he was hilarious. They're 2 cracking comedians.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm old compared to some comics. They are before my time, just for the record. But my parents had all of Bob Newhart's albums back when we listened to albums on vinyl. And so I grew up being surrounded by that sort of thing. And Bob Newhart is much more famous in America than he is here.
Yeah.
And he's still cracking on. The guy's amazing. But he just can weave a tale, and he brings you in, and he's got a fluidity to his thought process that I think is amazing.
Yeah.
And Lucille Ball was a trailblazer in so many ways. And I only found out recently how unfamous she is in the UK, which I think is a crime.
I think it's disgraceful as well. I really do.
Because she, not only the stuff she did on camera and on stage, but she changed television forever. She was one of the early trailblazers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
She changed sitcoms. They're all done with, multicams now because of her. So, yeah, she's a bit of a hero. And it's funny because my comedy is nothing like, and never will be anything like, her comedy is so physical. She's very much a clown. And that's not me, and that's fine. I admire a lot of comics I'm nothing like. I have a lot of love for one-liner comics, and like I said, I suck at writing a one-liner.
Oh, dear.
I do. I'm just not good at it, but I love them.
The reason why the blog exists and I like stand-up comedy was Morecambe and Wise for me in the 70s. I can remember the entire family laughing at them, whatever age they were. And I never ever got to see them. I saw Tommy Cooper in the 70s. I saw Les Dawson and Ken Dodd and the 2 Ronnies, but I so wish I'd seen Eric Morecambe. And just recently they've opened up a new art centre in Luton, and I've got a friend out there. And she said to me, they've got an afternoon dedicated to Morecambe and Wise. And I went and I met Eric Morecambe's son. and it was just the most extraordinary thing. He was the loveliest bloke to chat to, and I said, you know, your dad and Ernie Wise were absolute heroes to mine, and he was wanting to know all about the blog and everything, and that's the magic of doing what I think anybody connected in this wonderful industry does, because there's so many memories created from comedy nights, you know, and it's just magic to sit in the audience and watch it.
Yeah, I'm trying to consume more live comedy as well, and so it's a balancing act between gigging and promoting and
Yeah.
attending and occasionally having an evening at home once in a while. You know, but when I do, I tend to just kind of deflate, because if I'm not going, I just stop and
Yeah. I think you need to have the enthusiasm and the passion to keep going and doing it. Just following on from what you said, like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience? Do you still go now?
Yeah, I go
Yeah.
whenever I can.
Yeah.
So I've got a few coming up that I'm really excited about. And so we go, like my partner got me a membership to Soho Theatre, which made me very happy.
Oh, wow.
So we go there when we can to see shows, and
It's a wonderful place.
the Tommy Field, of course.
Well, yeah, that,
going
and I mean that. What a place Always Comedy has been to me. I mean, I've been going there 6 years now. It's been going for 11.
Wow. It's an amazing place, because it's a deceptively sized room.
Yeah.
It looks tiny, but it feels like a proper comedy club.
Yeah.
And,
It's similar.
and-
It's similar to Sofa So Funny though, because you walk through the pub and there's your room, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is fantastic. And as soon as I walked in there, I thought this is similar, and
that's a compliment.
without a doubt. And I mean, I first went to Always Comedy because I was looking for like a similar Edinburgh venue, and I went 2 or 3 times before I started going weekly. And the first act I saw there was Josh Widdicombe, and I was sitting halfway back, and he could hear my laugh there. So my friend said, "Move to the front," and the rest is history.
I bet they could hear you laughing
Yeah.
on the bar there as well. But just one more thing you said. Do I still go? I do go to lots of sort of proper shows, but also where I'm gigging, I very rarely leave after my set. I know some comics do, and sometimes you have to if you've driven 2 hours to do a gig on a weeknight. I'm probably going to have to leave after my set. But where I can, I always like to stay and see as much comedy as I can, because sometimes the person closing the set I'm gigging at is going to be the next big thing, and there's always something to learn from other comics.
I was just going to ask you that if you're on a bill or if you're doing a routine, you will stay and watch them all. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever possible. There are times when it's just not feasible.
Yeah.
But I've shared a bill with Mark Simmons, and
Oh, superb! He's been on here as well. What a funny man!
yeah.
There's your one-liner.
He works magic.
Yeah,
I wish my brain thought like that. It doesn't.
I absolutely love that man. He's hilarious.
He's so good. He's so good. In June, coming up at Full Frontal out in Eton, I'm on a bill with Shappy Korsandi. No, with Sindhu V. With Sindhu V. I was going to be on with her anyway.
Yeah.
And
she's
that's
good as well.
Amazing. She's just a hero.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and so there's always something to learn. I did again at Full Frontal in between a couple of the lockdowns. I did a show where Arthur Smith was on. The amazing, incredible Arthur Smith.
Extraordinary
and
man.
He's so great, because I said to him, and he doesn't know who I am, you know, and I said, would you mind giving me any feedback that you might have? And he did, bless him. He sat and he listened to my set, and he gave me some really helpful feedback afterwards.
Fantastic.
And he just couldn't have been nicer.
He is a legend. I mean, another coup is he's been on this blog as well. I managed to get him, and he was just magic. I've seen him years and years and years do comedy, and a particular memory was at the Edinburgh Fringe, where we were queuing up outside to go into his show, And for some reason, to introduce himself, he gave every member of the audience a little rock.
That's brave.
I've kept it forevermore. He was wonderful. I've got all my books behind me, all my comedy biographies, and his is particularly so good because he's been going for so long. He's a lovely, lovely man and a very, very funny comedian. Have you found online gigs good as opposed to live stand-up gigs? You said before you did a few online gigs during lockdown. How did you find them? Were they good or bad or?
Bit of both,
Yeah.
to be honest. I did a lot of online gigs
Right.
during lockdown. There's a lot of people who started at the same time as me who just didn't get on with online gigs, and that's a valid response. But when we came out the other side, I had a lot more experience under my belt. And they are different,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. But they can be all right. They can be. It depends on the format, the platform. There's some that are on like StreamYard and you don't hear any audience, and I find those really difficult. So much so that I will actively avoid them if I can.
Yeah.
But if it's on Zoom and you've got audience and their mics are on and their videos are on and they're interacting, it's not easy because there's lag and there's, I mean, I did So You Think You're Funny. My heats were on Zoom,
Right.
so it's a different medium.
Yeah.
But the Sofa So Funny gigs that we've done online, I did another one with some friends that we ran called The Gig Idea as well. They were good. We had audience. We had people interacting. They were interested. They were laughing.
Yeah.
Which is what you need. If you're a comic, it's like blood to a vampire. It's like beat your laughter. But it's different timing, and it's remembering to look into the camera and not act the little box.
Yeah.
Waiting, trusting yourself enough to wait for laughter if you think it's going to come. It doesn't always. So it's definitely different.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick just one, I would absolutely pick live comedy every single time. However, I think there is a place for online comedy.
I totally agree with you. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I don't know what I'd have done without it. Whichever bright spark thought of an online gig on Zoom was extraordinary. But in the early days, there was no audio at all. So when I used to go to them, I used to go to Sean James's Monday night one. I used to go to Always Be Comedy. I used to go to Jarlath Regan's Irishman Abroad ones on a Friday night. They were all really well done gigs, but initially they didn't have any audio. And so I would sit here laughing at four walls, and literally I thought I was going to get taken away. But when they opened up the audio, the comedians could do the beat to the jokes, and to actually see the front row or the virtual people who were there was amazing, and it lifted it. But I'm so 100% with you. You cannot beat live comedy because it's of the moment. I love to go out on a Saturday night and have a few drinks and then go and sit there and just laugh like a drain, as you've clearly seen many times.
Yeah.
There's something about a live environment that is just so special. But I think online will continue in some shape or form.
I think it will, because I know there are people with accessibility issues.
Yeah, sure, yeah. It's very, very good for that. You can go all over the world as well and everything, you can,
I met people from all over the world and gigged with people from all over, and there is something to be said for people who can't otherwise attend comedy shows being able to still access it. And I think, I'm lucky enough that I don't have particularly mobility issues, but I live in London, and as I travel around, sometimes I'm really conscious that I'm fortunate that I don't have to think about, there's 100 stairs in this station I've got to deal with.
Sure, yeah.
Because not every station is accessible for people with mobility needs. And I just think, the pandemic has showed us that there is a place for online comedy, and I don't think that should end.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, I want to be out on a stage, but there is something to be said for not having to get out of my pajamas to do
Yeah.
the
Very much so. Yes. Yeah. Okay. This has been an absolute delight. It really has been lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much. Just before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say? Is there anything else? Have you got any gigs coming up, or any podcasts, or where can folk find you on social media or anything like that?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Richard. This has been fantastic. I love talking with you because it's always a laugh, literally.
I try.
But people can find me on. I'm not going to say about specific gigs because by the time this goes out,
Yeah.
they'll be there and gone. But people can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Real Leslie Gold, and it's LESLIE. And I'm not a twat, I promise. It's only Real Leslie Gold because somebody nicked my original Instagram and Twitter handles. So I had to change them, and I was away at the time. I was busy. My mother was crazy and whatever, and I was just like, I just need a different name and so I went with Real Leslie Gold, and now I'm stuck with that. So please follow me. But also, maybe more importantly, of wider interest, it's at Sofa So Funny, not so far. It's sofa like the one you sit on. Sofa So Funny. And it's that on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And that's if people want tickets for the gigs, all the dates and everything will be on there.
Everything is always, I think you probably know, I do blast a lot of promo on that.
It's brilliant. It's so good. I wish you every single success. I really do, with the comedy gigs that you do. I think you're a fantastic compere. I think you're a lovely woman and a great comedian. And thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. Gosh, I'm in very good company. Thank you so much.
All the very best to you, and take care. I'll see you soon.
Thanks.